Hello everybody. I suppose you're wondering why I'm wearing this big warm woolly coat on this beautiful Ohio spring day. That you will find out later in the show. For right now, I just wanted to remind everybody, or tell everybody for the first time, if you have any questions for me, post them in the comments and I will answer them next week. I'm not going to monitor it today, but I'll answer them next week in this little before time, before the part that Karina calls the tap dance time, before the show actually kicks in. So post your comments and questions and I'll answer them next week and say things like, Sally from Wisconsin wants to know. Anyway, so I'm all cozy in my new sweater now, and we will head on over to actually begin the show in the place where to the dining room. So welcome everybody. Welcome to Living Figuratively with your host, Judy Takacs. This is the show that asks the question, why not fill your home with the fabulous, fascinating faces and figures of people that you don't even know? Why not fill your home with figurative art? Each week I will spotlight either a piece or two from my collection or from my work, my own paintings. Today I'm bringing you to a special corner of my dining room where I have this gorgeous buffet table from ABC Warehouse that I got about 10-15 years ago. And I set up a little display here. Which I call it Curated Clutter. And one of my themes for doing the little Curated Clutter theme is pick a couple colors as sort of your background, your base colors. Right here I took my cues from the buffet, which is black, red, and a little bit of gold. And so the different antique-y things that I have, stumbled across or went looking for are black, red, or gold. One of the other themes with doing something like this is repetition. So you don't have like a million all different objects. You can do some repetition, like these staircase spindles that are this gorgeous red. I have a bunch of them and I even use them in the flowers, for better or for worse, whether you like that or not. But, and so I've essentially decorated this with, antique-y, flea market fine things, a little bit of repetition, family photographs, and spotlighting these two gorgeous, gorgeous small works by Arabella Proffer. They are quite amazing, and because they're tiny like this, I thought instead of hanging them on a skinny little piece of wall, I would accessorize with them right here on my buffet. Arabella Proffer, you may have heard of her or seen her in the paper. She is actually right now famous for her book, The Restrooms of Cleveland, which is just a fun book with all kinds of pictures of all the bathrooms that you might find in all the bars and restaurants in Cleveland, which right now during Corona times, you can't go to those bathrooms, bars, or restaurants. So it's a nice nostalgic thing. This is available on her website, arabellaproffer.com, and all the information on that is available on my website. Everything that I mentioned, I have listed there. But I fell in love with Arabella and her work several years before that, when I found out that she had written this book called The National Gallery of Kessa, which what she's essentially done with this is she's made up this whole country full of these fascinating villains and royalty and characters where they have, all kinds of scandalous stories. And she wrote all these scandalous stories and she made up all these people. And it basically flies in the face of the whole concept of why would I hang a painting of a person that I don't know on my wall. Here's a whole book of people that you can get to know, and you have one of these on your wall, you've got an instant story to tell about it. These teeny tiny paintings of hers are not in the book specifically, but they certainly could be. And I just, like, I keep marveling at some of the details. This one right here has some awesome tattoos, and the way that she did the lace is really pretty incredible. You know, it's just this gorgeous detailed work. And the frame that it came with a frame. She picked out a beautiful frame for it, and it really just goes along with that. And the other one right here, I was just noticing this teeny tiny detail. She's got a little safety pin on her lapel, which I just thought was a really nice detail. But so that's Arabella Proffer. Now we're gonna go do like the Jeffersons and be moving on up the wall to the painting that you're here to talk about, or that I'm here to talk about. This painting is called Highland Matriarch. And I'll tell you how this painting came to be. A couple years ago, the American Women Artists Organization put out a call for entry for a museum show. They actually have this wonderful mission of 25 museum shows in 25 years, meaning that every single year for the next 25 years, they're going to have a show in a museum. And if you remember a couple weeks ago when I was talking about the provenance of a particular piece of art, with being the resume of a piece of art, when a piece of art gets to put on its resume that it was shown at such and such museum, that's a real good thing. So I always try to enter their museum shows. The call for entry was a very specific one. It was sort of a theme call for entry, where basically they gave you a choice to get inspired by one of 13 works from the collection of the Hagen Museum, which is where the museum show was going to be. As far as theme shows, sometimes I don't enter them because I don't really like the concept of somebody else telling me, you know, what I should paint and what I should do. Especially if it's something that I wouldn't do otherwise, especially if it's on spec, like where it might not even get accepted to the show. But this particular one, there was quite a few reasons that it was fun for me. Partially because it was a museum show, so that's definitely one. And when I went looking through the arts to get inspired by to create your piece from, I found this little gem. It's bigger than this tiny thing, but this is just a printout of it. One of the pieces you could get inspired by was by Eugene Joseph Verboekhoven, and this painting was called Highland Monarch. The Highland Monarch is the alpha sheep. That's the name for an alpha sheep. Who knew? When I decided that this one was the one I was going to get inspired by, I knew that I wanted to interpret it using humans because I'm not really an animal painter. I infinitely prefer painting humans. And I knew that I wanted to interpret it as a feminist piece. So the name came to me before anything else, and I switched it to Highland Matriarch. So I basically took the sheep patriarchy and turned it on its head. When I started concepting this piece, I knew that Mettee, who is the model for it, was going to be the one that I would ask to pose for it. And Mettee, I know that I have mentioned her before. She is my favorite jewelry artist / model, and coincidentally, she happens to be exactly 1 week minus 1 hour from now, next Thursday night at 5 o'clock, she's going to be having a virtual trunk show with B Gallery, and that's just the letter B Gallery in Chagrin Falls. All the information for how to get in on that is on my website. But it starts at 5 o'clock, so you can tune in there at 5 o'clock, pick up the best jewelry you can, and then kick back, relax, and watch me at 6 o'clock because I'll talk about other stuff. But anyway, Mettee is the model for this painting, and she was super indulgent. I had to use the black gloves, which were very clumsy. They were a little bit loose on her, so I had to duct tape them on her. She wore that itchy wool coat for several hours. I mean, I couldn't wait to get that thing off when I walked through that door, my pretend door. And then the horns. The horns were a whole nother thing. I didn't actually glue horns to her head, but what I did do was I sent for this shofar, which a shofar is made out of a ram's horn. It's used in Jewish religious ceremonies, and I guess you blow into it. I'm not going to do it because I will do it badly, and you have to have a knack to it to do it the right way. But so I sent for this shofar, which unfortunately did not arrive in time for the posing session, but fortunately I was out looking to see if there was some other way I could find a ram's horn. And I found one on a lamp at Town and Country Gifts in Sugar Falls. And they were super indulgent and very nice to me and let me just take pictures of it instead of making me buy the lamp, because the lamp, well, I would have to think of a really good way to incorporate it into my curated clutter in someplace in my home. So I'm glad that I don't own this lamp, but I'm glad that they let me take a lot of pictures of it. And so I was able to use the photos of the lamp as to put them onto Kim's head without, for the pose. And one of the things, okay, with being inspired by another painting to do your painting, one of the things that I really liked about this painting was that it had a landscape in the background. Now, anybody that's real familiar with my work or even marginally familiar with it, you probably know that I have zero landscapes. I really don't like doing landscapes. They just don't speak to me. If they're too complicated, they confuse my little brain. And if they're too simple, I just don't know what to do with all that empty space. So I'm not a big landscape painter. But this painting challenged me because it gave me a good opportunity to do a little master copy. And for those that don't know what a master copy is where you take a masterwork or a painting by a painter who does it better than you and copy it. Not for deception or forgery, but for education. So you look at the colors and you try to match the colors and see how they mix the colors so that you can get those colors. You look at the brush strokes and try to match the brush strokes and figure out how they flicked the brush, how they handled that, how they washed this into that, and really try to basically live through that painter by creating your own copy of that painting. And so that gave me a good opportunity to do that. And so, I didn't make an exact copy of every single little speck of it, because that was hard to do. And I also wanted to meld it in with the single Highland Matriarch. I didn't put other ladies laying around in fur coats. And I had a lot of fun putting those little baby sheep all on the background. That was just kind of the pièce de résistance. So those little sheep were super fun. And just since I'm here giving you little bits of art advice and art buying advice, one of the things that you do need to watch out for as far as like forgeries, there is a thing online where you can go to certain websites and get the painting of your choice by like literally thousands of different artists you can choose from. You can get the painting of your choice in whatever size you want. So you can get Leonardo's Last Supper done this big if you want to. You can get it 8 by 10 so that it'll fit in that little nook in your bathroom. And in a lot of those cases, the work is over 100 years old, so it's in the public domain. So there's nothing illegal about it. But you may, if it's only $89, which a lot of them, the prices start at $89, you could very well get a very bad piece of art at the bare minimum. A lot of them, what they do is they take a photograph of the art and project it, put it on canvas, and print it on canvas, and then put a couple brush strokes on it to make it look more like a painting, or put like really thick gloppy varnish on it to make the whole thing have pretend brush strokes all over it. And if they say they can make it in whatever size you want, it's treated like the scam that it is, because you will get a not very good piece of art. In some cases, what they do is actually take the work of living artists, which is, that is illegal, because if there's a living artist who owns the copyright to something, and it's being offered on one of these websites in, whatever size you want for $89, it's stolen from that artist, and that artist is making zero money from it, probably doesn't even know that it's been stolen, and usually has no legal recourse, because it's being done in a different country and there's nobody to even contact about it. So don't support those kind of websites. But do support the artists that I talk about in this show, and I give you everybody's websites, because they are real and they are spectacular. Anyway, so that is the Highland Matriarch story, and I hope that you will all join me next week at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, when next week I will tell you about which piece of Kim Mettee's jewelry I got at 5 o'clock. I would recommend that you show up at 5 o'clock on her for her virtual trunk show with B Gallery, because things do get snapped up quickly. So join me at 6 o'clock next week, when I will be talking about chicks with balls, and chicks with chicks. Y'all come back now, you hear?